I always thought of myself as a rational person, but everything changed when my dreams began to bleed into reality. I kept seeing a man I had never met, tall, thin, wrapped in a worn black coat, with eyes that didn't seem to reflect any light. At first, I dismissed him as a random creation of my mind. But I was wrong, so terribly wrong.
The first dream was short. I stood in an empty subway tunnel, lit only by flickering lamps. Far down the tracks, I saw him. He didn't move, just stared at me from the darkness. Then a loud metal slam echoed behind me, and I jolted awake. His gaze lingered in my mind like it followed me out of the dream.
2 nights later, the dream returned, but the setting changed. This time I stood in an abandoned parking lot outside a supermarket. The sky was unnaturally gray, and he was there again, closer now. I saw his pale, drawn face and thin lips. When he slowly raised his hand toward me, I woke up screaming. I started writing down every dream, hoping to find a pattern. The places changed every time, but he didn't. And with each dream, the man appeared nearer, clearer, more present. I tried blaming stress or lack of sleep, but the dreams felt too real. They clung to me long after waking, like a scent I couldn't wash off.
One night, I dreamed of my own bedroom. I lay in bed, unable to move, completely paralyzed. The room was nearly pitch black, but I heard slow footsteps in the hallway. He entered without a sound. He leaned over me and whispered, "We're getting close." I woke drenched in cold sweat, heart pounding like a drum.
After that, strange things started happening. I kept noticing silhouettes in crowds that looked like him, but whenever I focused, they were someone else. The dreams felt like a shadow stalking me. I drank coffee nonstop to avoid sleeping, but eventually my body gave out. I dozed off on a bus ride, and the nightmares returned. In that dream, I stood on a rooftop of an unfamiliar building. The wind cut through me like knives, and he appeared, just a few meters away. His eyes were pitch black, without pupils. "Soon," he whispered. I stepped back in fear, stumbled, and fell. When I snapped awake, my body jerked like I'd actually hit the ground.
I told a friend what was happening. He laughed at first, saying it sounded like typical dream hallucinations. But when I described the man's appearance in detail, my friend grew quiet. He said he'd seen someone who looked just like that standing near my apartment a few days earlier. My stomach twisted with real fear.
The next dreams were longer. In them, I wasn't just watching. I was running, hiding, trying desperately to escape. Yet he always appeared beside me, closing the distance faster than I could move. His motions were jerky, unnatural, almost like they skipped forward in time. Each dream left me more terrified than the last.
One dream branded itself into my memory. I stood in a deep forest, surrounded by twisted branches forming strange faces. He emerged from the shadows, holding an old leather-bound book. "You need to remember," he said, extending it toward me. When my fingers touched the cover, I woke up gasping for air. The next morning, my palm burned faintly. I looked down and saw a thin, nearly invisible line, like a faded scar. Nothing in my room could have caused it. That's when a horrifying thought hit me. What if the dreams weren't staying in the dream world? What if they were crossing over? I searched online for cases of recurring strangers in dreams. Most articles blamed stress or trauma. But on one obscure forum, I found people describing something disturbingly similar. A visitor who first appeared in dreams, then began appearing in reality. Their descriptions matched my experience almost perfectly.
One comment chilled me to the core.
If he starts talking, that's stage 3. My blood went cold. The man had spoken to me more than once. Others wrote that stage 4 meant seeing him while awake, and almost every account went silent after that, as if the person behind it had simply vanished.
I tried staying awake for 2 full days. On the 3rd night, exhaustion won. Sleep hit me instantly. There was no location this time, just darkness without end. I stood in it, hearing nothing, seeing nothing. Then he stepped out of the void like emerging from deep water. And this time, he walked right up to me. I saw every flaw in his distorted face, slightly uneven like mismatched pieces pushed together. "You're ready," he whispered. I tried stepping back, but my legs wouldn't move. When his hand touched my shoulder, a jolt of pain shot through me. I woke with a gasp, and the pain was still there, sharp and burning. A bruise marked my shoulder, a thin crescent-shaped imprint. Terror swallowed me whole. Every time I tried to close my eyes, I felt like he was standing beside the bed, waiting. I didn't know if I was losing my mind or encountering something beyond explanation, but I knew he was getting closer.
My friend suggested I take a break and stay at his family's cabin in the woods for a few days. I agreed, desperate for distance. The quiet, secluded house felt safe at first, but on the very first night, I had another dream, one so vivid it barely felt like a dream at all. It felt like being awake.
In the dream, I stepped out onto the porch. The trees stood completely still, frozen like a painted backdrop. The air was dry and cold. Then I heard footsteps behind me, slow, deliberate. When I turned, he stood there. "You can't escape," he said calmly. The ground cracked beneath my feet, and I fell.
I plunged into total darkness. No sound, no shape, just cold emptiness. His whisper echoed through it. "The meeting is near." Then something icy touched my cheek. I woke up shaking. The cabin was silent, but the front door was standing wide open. I knew for a fact I had locked it before bed.
Returning to the city didn't help. Days passed in a blur of exhaustion and paranoia. Then one evening, while waiting for the bus, I saw him across the street. A man in a black coat, standing completely still. He had his back to me, but I recognized the silhouette instantly. I froze as he slowly turned his head. His eyes found mine, those same hollow dark eyes I'd seen night after night. A thin smile crept onto his lips. My breath caught in my throat. I blinked in shock, and in that instant, he disappeared into the crowd. I pushed through the people, searching, but he was gone. Stage 4 had begun. Over the next days, I saw him again and again, in reflections on windows, in the corner of my eye on escalators, standing briefly in doorways before vanishing. He never approached, just watched, as if making sure I never forgot he was real now, real in a way he shouldn't be. Last night, everything changed. I fell asleep unintentionally, and the dream came immediately. Except it wasn't a dream. He stood in my bedroom, fully formed, solid, impossible to ignore. "We're connected now," he said. When I woke, wet footprints trailed from the door to the side of my bed. I don't know who he is. A creature between worlds, a fragment of my own mind made real, something that chose me for reasons I'll never understand. But I know this. Every night he draws closer, and I'm no longer sure there's anything left separating our worlds. Maybe there never was. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. If you've ever seen strangers in your dreams, pay attention. Sometimes dreams aren't just dreams. If you enjoyed this story, drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more creepy encounters. And remember, don't ignore the figures watching you in the dark.